Hey guys, well, I got stopped on my yard furniture painting temporarily because of the weather. It's cleared out now, but we got rain and some thunderstorms and stuff like that going on. So anyway, I wanted to do a video that's sort of going to be a prequel to the video, the segment you're about to see. You're about to see a drive in this Dart. This is a 73 Dodge Dart Sport. It's a 318 with a 904 transmission in it. And some of you have been wanting to go for a ride in this and take you along on that. So I did that. And at the same time, it kind of demonstrated some transmission issues this car has. And to briefly recap this, I put this car together a few years ago. And when I got it, it had a junk engine in it, had the original transmission in it, original rear end. So I bought another engine for it, put it in, got it running, and I serviced that transmission and put seals in it. And I was taking a gamble on whether it actually would work, and I sort of partially lost on that. I guess you could say I totally lost that gamble because it works enough to move it, but it has issues. So I thought I would just kind of give a synopsis of what you're going to hear as we go around the block. We're going to take the long way around. We're going to go down my street here to the end. We're going to take a right, go up a block, and we're going to come back right again, come up the street that's behind here, and then we're going to take a right back down to this street here again and come in. So anyway, like I said, this is a 904 TorqueFlite automatic transmission. It's a 3-speed, which is strictly a hydraulically operated unit. There's no electronics. This is the same design for the most part as a 727. 727 is a larger version of this transmission. So no electronics on it. So this will not apply to anything that's later than about a 94. So if your transmission on a Mopar's got electronic controls, then this is not going to apply to you. But you'll see as we go along, we're going to pull out and we're going to go down the street, and you're going to notice, well, you won't get to hear it at first, but on down the way down here as I slow down for those speed bumps, you're going to notice when I step back on the accelerator that it flares each time I do that, which means the engine revs a little bit and then it catches the gear and goes on. And what's going on there is that it's in third gear, and when I step back on the accelerator, it's trying to pull in third gear, which in this transmission is now no longer there for the most part, but it's trying to pull in third gear just momentarily, and then it shifts back down to second. That's why you hear it sort of like it goes and then takes off, and then when I slow down enough, then it goes back down to first, or it stays in second and it doesn't slip. So when we get to the end down there, you're going to notice that take a right turn, and the transmission sounds like it works fine because it takes off in low gear, shifts up to second on time. But as we go up, you're going to notice that there's, it's kind of like we keep waiting and waiting and waiting for third gear, and third gear never comes. Just about the time I have to slow down and let off the gas, when I let off the gas to make the right turn going up the hill up there, then you can just barely feel, of course you can't because you're on video, but I can barely feel it. It's what it does, it just kind of just vaguely drops into high gear when you let off the accelerator, and that's not supposed to happen, because how these things work is I've got a mechanical link between the carburetor and the transmission, and so that means that the transmission instantaneously reads what your foot is doing on the accelerator pedal. So that's how your shift timing happens. It's adjustable, and on these, either you have the transmission throttle linkage, you have it right, or you have too tight, which means it shifts too late, or you have it too loose, which it shifts too early. So you have either soft early shifts, or you have late harsh shifts, or you have them pretty much on time. So this one, I've got an aftermarket throttle linkage on it the whole way down in the transmission, and it's already been adjusted. So my first to second shift is on time. So that deal with it holding that second out too long like that, that's not something to do with the linkage adjustment. That's something in the transmission. It's probably because I'm about to explain to you fully what I think is going on here, but that's something internal. So we make our turn up at the top there by the church, and we come back up this street here, and you're gonna notice again we get a good first to second shift, and then I have to just pretty much let off of it to get it to go in third again. That's not right at all. And you'll notice that it's not a let off of it and then get a harsh shift. It's a let off of it and you just about can't tell anything's even there shift. What are you making so much noise about? Huh? I'm making a video. Darn you. But anyway, so we go up the street, and then you can tell that I'm trying to give it gas, and it's slipping pretty good in third gear. It's just basically not going to pull in third gear unless you're very easy on the accelerator. And then at some point, you'll notice it slows down enough that it grabs second again and takes back off in second. And that's not, I didn't touch the gear shift. That's it doing it by itself. And then we come down and we take our turn to the right again and come down back to the neighborhood and just ease along, and there's nothing really left to show you there. So what's the deal with this thing? What do we think is going on with it? Well, what I believe is going on with this is I believe that the front clutch pack is burned out on it. And a TorqueFlite like this one and a 727 use two clutch packs, a forward clutch pack, which means it's up this way in the transmission, and then you use a rear clutch pack, which is towards the back of the transmission. That's the only two they have. Some transmissions have more than that, but this one has two. The rear one, I believe it is for low gear in second, and then the forward clutch pack is for high gear, third only, and reverse. So we know our problem's probably in there because we basically don't have any third gear. It's nothing there when you try to let it shift into third. Now, I know you say, well, reverse work because it's all you back up in the driveway. Yeah, the reverse does work. I mean, you drop it in reverse and it just goes right in. But the thing about reverse on these is reverse what they call the line pressure, which means the pressure that is generated by the transmission pump as it runs is, there's different ways that pressure is not consistent through the transmission. Damn, depending on what gear you're in and what you're doing with it, in other words, to put it kind of simply. So in other words, the line pressure between third, which is slipping, and reverse, which is not slipping, is quite a bit. I mean, there's a lot more line pressure in reverse. That's why this thing will back up. Now, if they get bad enough, when third gets burnt completely up, then it won't back up or do anything. And this one, I'd say if I got here and just tried to make it go in third gear and slipped it, I'd probably find out that I didn't have any reverse left after that. So that's why reverse is working now. Explain to you simply, what is a clutch pack? Well, you know what a clutch is. I'm sure all of you have seen a clutch on a manual transmission is just a disc, large disc. You got a pressure plate on one side that pushes against it. Got the flywheel on the other side that it presses it against. Flywheel's turning, clutch grabs it, clutch turns, clutch is supplying to the output shaft of a manual transmission. Well, this is sort of the same philosophy, except that a clutch pack is a stack of much smaller, when we're talking probably about 5 or 6 inches in diameter at the most, clutches in there that are wet clutches, means that they operate with transmission fluid in, on, and around them. So those things, I think this one has a 4 clutch front clutch pack, which means there's what they call sort of a pressure plate type deal, and then there's a clutch which has got 2 facings on it like they all do, a steel, which is just a steel plate that looks like a clutch with nothing on it, a clutch, steel, clutch, steel, clutch, whatever. That's the way it goes. So what happens is this thing, and I've seen this happen on several TorqueFlites, it's the same thing happens. Third gear always takes the abuse, because like on this one you've got a tall rear end ratio. This is a 276 rear end ratio, which means that is, you know, lower RPM, more for cruising and not for towing. But this car, I noticed when I got this car, it had a hitch on it and it had trailer wiring. So somebody had been using this car to tow something, probably a boat. And what happens is the transmission runs hot, the fluid gets thin, and then you're probably going up through the gears with it, you know. And what happens is it gets a bunch of miles on it, and all that transpires. It's hot weather, and that thing, it starts slipping going into the between second and third. It just starts out, it slips a little bit. Or they had what really probably killed it, so probably had the throttle adjustment going between the transmission and the throttle, the carburetor out, so it was probably didn't have enough pressure on it, and it was slipping anyway. You know, it was probably too soft of a shift, and that just took it out. Those clutches start slipping against each other and against those steels, and they just burn the facing off of them, and then all you got in there is just metal. So that's probably very likely what's going on with this one. It probably has nothing else wrong with it except that somebody abused it and burned the third gear out of it. And normally these transmissions, that's the first 904 I've ever seen personally that had a problem. Normally these transmissions are just, they take everything you can deal with, but if you ever get the throttle adjustment, the throttle linkage to the transmission out one way or the other, you'll kill it. And I don't understand how these things been around for nearly 50 years and people still seem like they can't understand how that works. It's dead nut simple. So that's probably what the deal is with it. If you remember that truck I had, one of those trucks I had that two-tone Dodge, the big D250 that I couldn't hardly ever get to start. Anyway, that one had a burned up transmission, and it did the same thing as another truck I had that you guys never saw. I had a 93 D150. And they both were seized up in third gear, which means you put the transmission in gear and it was third all the time. Because what happened was the same as this. Somebody abused it so much and overheated the transmission, and the third gear clutch pack started slipping. And what happened was this one just slipped and just burned it out. And I still got first and second. Those trucks, that they abused them so much that they basically welded the steel parts together in there. So third gear was constantly always engaged. I drove that 93 around for months with just third gear in it. That's weird, man. You take off and it's like you got a stall converter in it, or like a CVT. You just watch the speedometer creeping up, and it never shifts. So anyway, I'm not going to make my goal of getting this to the car show, which is next weekend. I came close. I'm happy with that it runs and drives, and I'm still waiting on my interior poster. More than anything, I have to pull the transmission out of this to fix it, and I hate pulling transmissions out, because that means I have to get this thing up on stands and I have to grovel under it to get that thing out, and then I have to rebuild it. So I'll just admit I'm not been in a rush to do that. I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm gonna teach myself. There's lots of information how to rebuild these. I'm going to teach myself how to rebuild it. So that's where we're at with this. But I wanted to give you this. I know this is probably as long as the other segment of this, but I wanted to use this as a platform to explain what you're hearing, because I know some of you are really quick to jump on and say what was wrong with the video, what was lacking. It's too close, the camera's too close, the camera's too far away, not enough light, too much light. You talk too much, you didn't describe what you're doing. You didn't use a pointer. You had your camera turned the wrong way, you had this done, you had that done. You didn't help me shake the drops off after I took a piss. You know, and that points something else out too. You ever notice people that do that? If you ever visit their homepage on YouTube, none of those bitchers ever have a video put up. They're always, all they exist to do is just bitch at other people for not doing something right. Jeez. Let us kiss your damn feet. Anyway, here you go, guys. Enjoy the ride, and hope to see you soon. Later.